You used to dread this, the quiet, the empty chair across from you, the sound of your own silverware against the plate. At some point, you can't name exactly when the silence stopped feeling like something was wrong, and then you had a different problem. Because now people wanted to know why you were okay with being alone. They offered concern like it was help. Are you sure you're not depressed? Don't you get lonely? And you didn't have words for what had shifted, only the feeling of it. This is what that shift actually is, where it comes from, and why so few people reach it, not because it's rare, but because nobody explains what it requires. Here's something that nobody corrected for us growing up. Solitude and loneliness are not the same experience. They can coexist. You can be lonely in a room full of people, and not lonely sitting entirely by yourself. Most of us know this somewhere, but we were never given the language to hold that distinction clearly. Alone becomes code for lonely. Lonely becomes code for something wrong with you. That equation is what sends people back into relationships they've outgrown. It's what makes them fill every silence with noise: a podcast, TV in the background, a text conversation, to avoid being left with just themselves, not because they're extroverted, because the silence feels like an indictment. Paul Tillich wrote that loneliness is the pain of being alone, while solitude is the glory of being alone. Same physical circumstance, completely different internal experience. The difference isn't about personality type. It's about whether you have a relationship with yourself that can sustain your own company. Most people who struggle with being alone were never taught how to have that relationship. Some were actively taught their own company wasn't enough. They needed to be with someone to be worth anything. That was a lie, but it installed itself deep. There's a reason being alone can feel unbearable for some and sustaining for others. It's not about how social they are. In 2010, John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago published research that changed how neuroscientists think about loneliness. Cacioppo found that chronic loneliness doesn't just feel bad, it registers in the brain as a persistent threat state. The same biological alarm system that activates when you're physically in danger activates when you feel disconnected from others. Your immune system changes, your cortisol levels elevate, your sleep architecture disrupts, your brain begins hyper-scanning for social threat the way it would scan for physical danger in an unsafe environment. But here's the crucial distinction. Cacioppo made one that most people miss. The problem wasn't being alone, it was perceived isolation. The interpretation of aloneness as abandonment. Two people could be in identical circumstances, same apartment, same Friday night, same absence of company, and one experiences it as threat while the other experiences it as something closer to relief. The difference sits in a concept called self-sufficiency and, more specifically, in what psychologists Deci and Ryan identified in their self-determination theory as the capacity for autonomy. Autonomy here doesn't mean independence from others. It means acting from your own values and choosing your own experience rather than requiring external approval or company. People who've built that internal autonomy don't experience solitude as threat. They experience it as space, room to think, room to just be without performing for anyone. That's not a personality trait you're born with. It's something that gets built or doesn't. Here's the part nobody talks about. There's a specific kind of person for whom solitude is most difficult to access. Not the person who loves connection, not the person who genuinely needs people. The person who has spent so long managing other people's emotional states that they don't know what their own feels like. If you've been in a relationship where you walked on eggshells, where your emotional energy was constantly deployed in service of someone else's regulation, your nervous system learned to treat stillness as suspicious. Because in that environment, stillness meant something was coming, the quiet before something broke. For you, being alone doesn't feel like freedom yet. It feels like waiting. Your body is still scanning for the thing that's about to go wrong. And when nothing goes wrong, when the apartment stays quiet and no one needs anything from you, and the evening just unfolds, it can feel disorienting, almost wrong, like you've forgotten how to exist when no one needs you to be anything. The psychologist Harriet Lerner describes this as the loss of the performing self, the version of you that exists in relation to someone else's needs. When that role disappears, there's a gap where a self should be. Filling that gap isn't about finding more to do. It's about learning to be present with yourself in the same way you've been present for everyone else, which is harder than it sounds, because you've been trained that your own company ain't the point. I want to describe what changes when solitude stops feeling like punishment because it doesn't happen the way people expect. It's not a moment of revelation. It's not the day you wake up and suddenly love yourself. It's smaller than that, and more real. It's the Sunday afternoon where you realize 2 hours passed, and you didn't check your phone once. Not because you forgot, because nothing pulled you toward it. You were already somewhere. It's the moment you cancel plans not with guilt, but with clean recognition that you need this evening for yourself, and you don't immediately doubt that recognition. It's cooking a meal and sitting down to eat it, and the silence feeling like company rather than absence. This is solitude. It's not independence as armor. It's not I don't need anyone. That's just loneliness in a different costume, still organized around other people, just in rejection instead of need. Solitude is the experience of being genuinely at home in yourself. It doesn't require the absence of other people. It just doesn't require their presence to be okay. Here's what actually builds a relationship with your own company. Not meditation, necessarily, not journaling, unless that's genuine for you. Not any technique that you perform and then check off. What builds it is doing something for yourself, something you genuinely like or find interesting or restful. Without documenting it, without telling anyone, without making it a story. That last part is more important than it sounds. In 2013, researchers Timothy Wilson and Daniel Gilbert at the University of Virginia ran a series of experiments where they asked participants to sit alone with their thoughts. For 6 to 15 minutes, the majority of participants found the experience so uncomfortable that when the researchers offered them the option to give themselves small electric shock rather than continue sitting alone, a significant number chose the shock. They preferred physical pain to their own unguided company. But here's what Wilson noted: the discomfort wasn't inherent to solitude. It was the result of having no practice with it, no skill at being with themselves, no experience of what their own mind does when left without a task or a screen, or a problem to solve. Solitude is a capacity, and like most capacities, it develops through practice. That begins badly and improves gradually. Start with 10 minutes of genuinely unstructured time. No phone, no content, no task you're supposed to be doing. Just you in a room, doing something or nothing, without narrating it to anyone. It will feel strange, maybe uncomfortable. Your mind will offer you 50 reasons to reach for something. Don't fight the discomfort, just stay in it. A little longer each time. That discomfort is the gap between who you've been and who you're becoming. A person who can bear, and eventually enjoy, their own company. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. You know this now. But knowing it and living it are different distances. The people who move through solitude like it's home, they didn't arrive there because they stopped needing others. They arrived because they stopped needing to escape themselves. If you've spent years in relationships where you had to disappear to survive, where your presence was a problem, or an inconvenience to be tolerated, your nervous system will need time to learn that the silence isn't ominous, that the empty evening isn't evidence of failure. That's not weakness to overcome. It's an adaptation to unlearn, and it unlearns slowly, not in one evening of intentional solitude, but in 100 evenings, one by one, where nothing bad happens and you're still okay at the end of them. If you're still figuring out who you are when no one needs you to be anything, the next video goes directly into that. Identity, approval, the self that survives without an audience.